Hi, my name is Pat, and this is my channel, Book Chat with Pat, and I'm glad that you're here. Today I'm going to be doing my weekly wrap-up for the week ending March 15th. This week I finished a couple of books, and I made some good progress on another book. The first thing that I finished was The Flick by Annie Baker. And this is a play that we're reading for Angelia at Read and Reread for her year-long reading event, Endless Drama. This is a play that is set in an old movie theater, a movie theater that is about to abandon the 35 millimeter film for digital film. And we follow in the course of the play the lives of three people who work in the theater. There's Sam, who's a 35-year-old who's worked in the theater for years and feels like it's a dead-end job and like he's constantly passed over for better jobs. And there's Rose, who's a 24-year-old who has worked there for a couple of years, and she was hired over Sam to be the projectionist. And then there's Avery, the newest employee, and he is a college-aged student. A young man who has, we discover as the play progresses, he has had some difficulties in his recent life. He knows everything there is to know about film, about every film that was ever made. Much of the play is just conversation among these three co-workers that they share during their shifts at the theater, often while they're cleaning the theater in between shows. The play is billed as a comedy. I don't think I felt that it was all that comedic necessarily. I mean, there is some humorous dialogue, but I didn't really, I don't think comedy quite describes this play. It does show really, really well how people who work together get along and how they, gradually share their lives with one another. It also shows really well how people talk to each other. Over the course of the play, Sam, Rose, and Avery show themselves to be much more complex characters than they might appear to be at first. They are in this sort of kind of seemingly dead-end job, but they are all people with very definite unrealized dreams and ambitions that go far beyond the this sort of dreary movie house that they're working in. Much of the conversation that they have is about film, and they play games, related to films and actors. They talk about the genres that they love in film, and it is definitely a play that celebrates film. But they also talk about their lives, and we see that all three of them in different ways are dealing with loneliness and isolation, and there's some unrequited love in the story as well. As the play goes on, we see that the theater is being sold. There's the threat, there's a potential threat of closure of the theater. There's definitely the threat of major transformation as the theater is going to go from being one that shows 35 millimeter films to one that will show only digital film. So there's also kind of a theme of nostalgia for the film, the old film industry. I liked this play a lot. I found it to be a really thoughtful, just interesting kind of slice of life, depicting these lives of these young people. And although I'm certainly not an expert on film, I really enjoyed the nostalgia for for traditional film. So that was one that I finished. I also finished this week The Star Beast, which I'm reading for the Heinlein group, where we're reading a different novel each month. We are supposed to be discussing this later today in a live stream, but there is some question about whether that's going to be able to happen today or not. So maybe later on today, this afternoon, or it could be postponed for a week. And I'm not going to know that, I think, for a little while. This novel was written in 1954. It's considered part of Heinlein's juvenile series. I think I've now read 4 of his juvenile novels. I like them. I think I like them more than I like his adult science fiction. I haven't read enough of it yet to know. This is the story of an alien creature who is fondly known as Lummox in the course of the story. Lummox is kept by a teenaged boy, John Thomas Stewart. This extraterrestrial, alien beast was actually brought back by John Thomas Stewart's great-grandfather. So this is a creature that's been around and been among human beings for some time now. Lummy, as he's affectionately called, is a gigantic creature, and he has or it has, well, we find out some interesting things about who Lummy really is, but Lummy has a voracious appetite, which includes devouring large metallic objects, including things like cars. Lummox also has the ability to speak, not merely to parrot or repeat human speech. This is an alien creature that can speak English and can communicate, albeit in a childlike way, but the creature has language. One day, Lummox wanders off the property, really just looking for something to do, and inadvertently causes a lot of very serious damage in in the city. Really not meaning to be, but very, very destructive behavior, destroying all kinds of property. So John Thomas Stewart's own mother really wants to get rid of this oversized pet, and she starts a local action, or she starts an action at the local court to have to get rid of Lummox, which even includes the possibility of destroying the creature. Well, John Thomas decides that he has to take matters into his own hands, and he runs away from home with Lummox in an effort to save his pet from destruction. Then we find out that Lummox is actually much more than an alien pet. And this is where the story gets a lot more complex. I'm not going to say anything more about that right now because we are discussing it, if not today, sometime soon. So I don't want to talk about any more of the plot. I really like these juvenile novels that Heinlein wrote, and I enjoyed this one too. I don't think it's my favorite one, but it's fun. It was a lot of fun, and I definitely enjoyed it. I think I like The Red Planet, which was the one we read 2 months ago. I think I like that one better, but I'm going to wait till I've read them all, and then I'll decide what is my order of preference. And finally, this week, I also finished Dostoevsky's The Brothers Karamazov, which we've been reading throughout February and March. This was, as I've talked about in other videos, this was really a very difficult novel for me in the beginning. Somewhere around book 5, I was ready to quit. I didn't. I persisted. I was several hundred pages into it. I kept going. I'm glad that I kept going. The story definitely picks up after the point where I was ready to abandon it. I was ready to abandon it because of some really disturbing passages about cruelty to children. But I did go back to it, and I am glad that I have finished the novel. This is Dostoevsky's final novel. I think he actually died shortly after completing it. It was published originally in 1879 and 1880 in serial form in Russia. It was published in English for the first time in 1905. It's set in 19th century Russia. It deals with the Karamazov family. Fyodor Pavlovich Karamazov is the father. We are told about his 2 marriages, which produced the 3 brothers Karamazov of the title, all of whom have widely different personalities, different from each other and different from their father. And they each, one in his own way, has a difficult relationship with the father, who is really basically just a despicable person. He has never shown any love or care for any of his children. He's a vulgar man, he's a womanizer, and he's been a terrible father. He leaves his children to be raised by other relatives. And he even deprives his eldest son, Dmitri, of his rightful inheritance from his mother. He also becomes engaged in a very disturbing and weird love triangle with this eldest son and a young woman. So there's a bizarre competition between father and son for the affections of this woman. Each brother, Dmitri, Ivan, and Alyosha, each one seems to represent something different in the novel, where Dmitri seems to represent the purely sensual life. Ivan is certainly the more intellectual of the brothers. He's very much about the life of the mind. And then the youngest, Alyosha, he aspires to become a monk, and he seems to represent the spiritual life. We also find out that there is a fourth son, Smerdakov, who is illegitimate. He is the illegitimate son who is the product of Fyodor's taking advantage of a mentally impaired homeless woman. And he figures very prominently in the story as well. All of the sons strive to be different kinds of men, different from their father. And they take, each one takes a very, very different path in his own life. We're told really early on that the father is murdered, but it takes most of the novel for that to happen. We know it's going to happen. You start the novel knowing that he's going to be murdered. And it takes most of the novel for that to happen, for us to find out how it happens and why it happens. And then there's also a trial that unfolds. This is definitely a philosophical novel. It's often considered to be Dostoevsky's supreme achievement in his career. And I understand that. I understand why that is. This is my fourth Dostoevsky novel. I think I would have to read them together next to each other to decide what I think. The whole time I was reading this, I was thinking that I think I like Crime and Punishment better. But I'm not sure now. I think I would have to reread Crime and Punishment and probably reread Brothers Karamazov close to each other to decide which I really think is my favorite. I know that the other two that I've read Notes from Underground, and I've read The Idiot. I know that they're not my favorites. So it's between Crime and Punishment and The Brothers. We're continuing to discuss this in Discord. This is at Greg's Discord from Another Bibliophile Reads, and I believe we're going to have another live stream to talk about our feelings about the latter part of the novel. And I think that's going to happen either at the end of March or the beginning of April. So I'm glad I stuck with it. The last thing that I'm still reading, I have not completed this. This is Anne Bronte's Agnes Grey. And this is a novel that I'm reading with a group created by Melinda at A Web of Stories, and this is for her March reading event, March on the Moors, which is a reading event revolving around reading fiction and nonfiction, fiction of the Brontes and nonfiction about the Brontes. This is a fairly autobiographical novel based on Anne Bronte's own experiences as a governess. It depicts the loneliness and the isolation that a young governess experiences, and it absolutely uncovers the really difficult conditions under which many governesses worked during the 19th century. One of the things that has struck all of us is how completely unprepared for the work young Agnes Grey was. She went into being a governess with really, really difficult, impossible, incorrigible children, with zero preparation and no qualifications whatsoever. I am enjoying this novel immensely, and we have a lovely group that's talking about it in Voxer. Melinda was saying recently that this is the novel that she would recommend to someone who was just reading the Brontes for the first time. She was saying how well, Jane Eyre is also, a sort of a governess story. This is just a much more direct narrative, and it's much less complex than Jane Eyre or Wuthering Heights, which are probably the two Bronte novels that most people do probably read and probably start with. And I think I would agree with Melinda. I think this would, if somebody wanted to, get into the Brontes, this would probably be a good book to start with. It's a fairly direct narrative, and it doesn't have a whole lot of subplots, and there aren't layers and layers of things that we have to look at in terms of the characters and their relationships. So I agree with Melinda's idea that this is a good place. This is a good introduction to the Brontes. So that's what I've read this week. I have a bunch of things coming up that I'm going to be talking about in the next week. I had I received some really beautiful gifts this week from other booktubers and from subscribers, and I'm going to devote a separate video to talking about those things, because I want to give them their own spotlight. And I also had a very significant milestone this week that completely boggles my mind. I reached 4,000 subscribers at some point in the middle of this week, and I'm still sort of reeling from that reality, and I just I haven't decided yet what I'll do to observe that milestone, if I do anything to observe that milestone. But I did want to take just a few minutes today to thank everyone who has supported my channel and who has followed my videos, commented so thoughtfully, spread my videos around, shared them with others. This has been a year that has been so rewarding personally, and I just feel so blessed to be a part of this community and to have all of you as a part of my life. So I just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. So I think that will be it for today. As always, I thank you for watching. I hope that you're doing well. I'll speak with you again soon. Take care.